will. She might be about 1 or 2 inches taller or so she's going to be about 6 pounds. Her career is a writer / reporter at, and I'm putting this in very, very big air quotes here, a major city paper. We're not really sure where she works, but she does live in Portland, Oregon. Everything that's happening here currently is happening in her world as well. But there's things in her world that are occurring that aren't actually occurring here. I'll put it that way. It's quite a politically divisive comic, I will admit that. It's an interesting one to say the least. So, but without getting too much into it and spoiling things, a few things to note about her. She lives a very, very structured lifestyle. We're going down to the minute, to the hour, to the second even at times. And she gets very, very annoyed when fighting freaks and weirdos, as she calls them. She's got a very, very assorted list of villains she fights. She's fought villains such as the Eel, who uses basically an electric stun gun that shoots beams of electricity, rather than just launching out like a taser and hooking somebody, or a stun gun where 2 electrical little prods essentially have to make contact. This just shoots, actually has some range. She's also fought the disgusting Crab, or Crabs. He's got a very disturbing power, but essentially he launches crabs. Like, we're talking like the red / orange crabs we see that we eat, right? He launches those. I'm not going to get too much into him, but he does launch these, and we're not really sure exactly where they are stored. It does appear to be some kind of a pocket dimension. But she's also fought Volcana, who can launch flame blasts from her hands. Her skin and body are literally, she's essentially made up of lava, is what it appears. And she has also taken on the very, very large and mysterious ghost shark. And there's not a whole lot of data on really what it is, but we do know it came from a different dimension. She's also a D-rank superhero. And she has, as we've already discussed, she has taken on other supervillains. Some, such as Volcana, are rank A. Now, think of this ranking system very, very similarly to One Punch Man, where they go from F all the way to S, right? That's how this is all set up in her world as well. And what makes her stand out against most typical superheroes is her power, based on her name, is supposed to be based on the kiss. So when she kisses somebody, and I'm going to break this down further because we've got evidence of this, we're going to go discuss, is if she kisses somebody, they will lose their memory of her. Now, this is where things become a little iffy. We'll break this down a little further, but depending on who kisses, so it'll either be her as Maya Freeman or her as Ghost Kiss. If she kisses someone as Ghost Kiss, then that person will Ghost Kiss. But if Maya kisses them, then they lose the memory of Maya Freeman versus Ghost Kiss. So it's for that. So but it has to be the exact information. So it begs the question, is there some kind of scientific suit as to why it's Ghost Kiss? It's kind of Portland. What happens? She's down there. She's not trying to fight the robot. She's trying to go and get people out of harm's way, saving people that have already been harmed. But she is seen lifting up and holding a giant piece of concrete with rebar in it, up with one arm, with a little bit of like lunging a little bit into it, leaning into it, if you will, and holding it with a couple of fingers on her other hand. If you were to go and calculate out roughly how big that stone slab is, compared to her, which is roughly around her same height, you calculate out the whole density of that, the dimensions, and the actual, you break it all down, right? It comes down to roughly 1,591.71 pounds. So right there, I would already argue that's superhuman strength. But I digress. She does work out. We know that she is constantly working out. That's part of her daily routine. But that's already showing a little inconsistency with, oh no, superpowers. Or other than her kiss. Well, there's a superpower right there. Next, we've also got her little speed feat, her max speed. To be able to dodge an electric beam, she would have to be moving around 2,796.17 miles per hour, at least around there, just to be able to move out of the way. Now, we know that she did dodge that because that electric beam came from none other than the eel. She was able to successfully dodge it a couple times. So, right there, that, you could argue, superhuman agility. Next, we know that when it comes down to her combat training, she has had some CIA training. Now, if you were to go and just look around online, you can find several different sources, and it comes down to roughly about the same 3 types of fighting styles. You have Krav Maga, Jeet Kune Do, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's all about controlling the situation and getting out as quickly as possible. But with Jeet Kune Do and Krav Maga, you can also straight up just totally destroy somebody, depending on how you're working. Are you playing more defensively, or are you playing more offensively? And as we've seen in the comics, for those that haven't read her comics yet, she is definitely more on the offensive side. Next, we have her durability. This is going to be the last thing we're looking at when it comes to what she's bringing to this fight, because that's all she has, is this. We know that she was hit by a car going roughly between 23 and 28 miles an hour. How do we know this? Like I said earlier, this comic does take very, very political stances on some things. And Ghost Kiss was hit by a car by somebody who was reenacting the Charlottesville car crash. The car attack, if you will. And that's how fast that car was going. So she was hit with that. And that's not necessarily enough to kill somebody. It can if it crushed her, but she was hit. She was flung over it. So she was able to go and... She was hit by the car. The guy was able to get out of the car. She had a couple scratches on her, and then she was a little disoriented, it looked like. But she almost immediately got up. And it's nothing superhuman-like by any means. So that's not a thing. She doesn't have any superhuman endurance. Pretty human, if you will. Let's see. So that does conclude Ghost Kiss's background. Next, we have Totally Naked Man. Let's show him off. Guy on the left. So his real name is Al Fresco. He's roughly around 7 feet tall. He's varies in the comics. This guy really varies in the capabilities. you guys are going to see what he brings in. It's interesting. His weight is only between 250 and 300 pounds. Now, where we get this from is he would roughly be the same size as this. This stream, trying to get everything. I have some animations. It should be right on the stream. The next, like I said, this varies from it comes down to Totally Naked Man's career perfume. Yes, he is a multi-millionaire or billionaire, depending on the comic you're reading and depending on the reading on the website, together or not. But his day job is actually as a mail carrier at Rose City Museum. One second. Should be better. Alright. But one thing to really note about Totally Naked Man is a few things here. Loves to sing on. I'm not really sure what's going on with the mic. That should be a little bit better. So he sings on patrols frequently. You'll see that in at least 3 to 4 of his comics he straight up sings. In fact, there's actually a musical comic. It's really funny. Really interesting for sure, especially seeing a superhero, but a naked one nevertheless. You don't see anything. Keep in mind this comic is pretty tame. It's not graphic by any means. So for those worrying that this comic, it's too graphic, it's the nature of a Totally Naked Man, I understand. And so does this creator, Ilya King of Naked Man Comics, which is now actually Mythos in print. He's well aware. But as for what does Totally Naked Man bring to the battle here? Well, he's trained by some forest mystics. Just bear with me here. He can now, because of his training, he can summon the all-powerful cosmic being, the Horseless Horse. Keep in mind, it's invisible to non-believers. We never actually get to see it either, so there's that too. But he's the feats that we've seen the Horseless Horse do, he's literally beaten gods. And when I say gods, I mean, well, primarily Cronus of Greek lore. Uses a lot of telekinetic powers. So we're not really sure every little capability of the Horseless Horse. It's at least we know that it's toppled gods. That's what we know, and it does bring telekinesis at least to the fight. And we know that Totally Naked Man can summon the Horseless Horse rather quickly. It's not a guarantee every time, so it's kind of a risk. As for his physical condition and his strength, there's not really a whole lot of strength feats from him. But we know that he is at peak physical condition. We know this from his comics and from the wiki created by the creator, Ilya King. And it's also been stated that he's mostly a brawler. But we have seen that he does have some Krav Maga training as he trains with extremely conservative women. And the big thing to really take away that his annoyance, he hates mutants. So. But if we look at all this, what do we got from this? You got Ghost Kiss, who we've got some actual stats here. We can actually weigh out. Okay. She's got the saliva and lips, any kind of mouth contact, period, will cause her opponent to lose memory of her if she's in either Ghost Kiss or Maya, depends on which version of her, if you will, costume or uncostume when he's kissing, or using her mouth to affect. And even then, it's mouth-to-mouth contact, so it'd have to be saliva touching the mouth anyways. So spit can work. There's all sorts of different kinds of things that can work with her power. As for her max strength, we know that she has a max pushing strength of 1,591 pounds, almost 1,592 pounds. She can dodge at roughly 2,796 miles an hour, roughly. And we know that she had some CIA training along with Volcana. We know they were, Volcana was her team leader in the CIA. And she's had some, at least basic CIA training of Krav Maga, Jeet Kune Do, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. As for her durability, we also have nothing really on Totally Naked Man. So, what do we know about this? What could we assume about that fight there? How would this kind of go? So, I'll allow some guesses here. What do you guys think? Give a little time on that. Who do you guys think wins? We'll go with Y as well. I'll give it a little more time. All right. We're going to go and settle this debate here real quick. So who wins? Ghost Kiss or Total Naked Man? Well, if you guys haven't figured this out, I'm sure you guys have already, but for those that haven't, we have several edges for Ghost Kiss. Now, the only edge that Totally Naked Man actually holds is the risky choice, or not choice, but risky chance that the horseless horse actually does show up when he essentially meditates for praise for it. If it doesn't show, it's a guaranteed Ghost Kiss. And if you look at almost every scenario, all it takes, and literally all it takes, Totally Naked Man to somehow get her saliva in him. All she has to do is just jump over to him, and she's quick. She'll be able to dodge most of his attacks pretty easily, get up, and kiss him. What happens then if she kisses him? Well, now he forgets who she is. What's the point of using the horse's horse? So we're looking, I would argue it's probably close to about 90% of the time, at least. Totally Naked Man loses. Any thoughts on it? Alright. So, just to break it down further, as I promised, what we have here when it comes to strength, Totally Naked Man doesn't have very many strength feats, and even then his top strength feats that we do really have, kind of, they come from his punches. He has enough power in his punches, which somebody can have a lot of power in their punches and not be very strong. It depends on how they're hitting. It depends on their form. Depends on how they're throwing their weight. There's a lot of different things that go into the calculation of damage from a punch. However, we know with hers, we know that she's got the brute force of that. Now, Totally Naked Man, there's nothing showing that level of brute force, that strength that she has. As for speed, well, we don't have anything to really show for when it comes to his speed, what he can dodge. Now, he's more of a parody kind of character. He's more of a kind of a jokey kind of character. But it's an interesting matchup. If you think about it, he's completely naked. And initially, when I saw her powers, before doing all the research on it, and just off of what I remembered, I figured, all I would have to do is get into his system. It could be as simple as just spitting on him, per se. But nope. It actually has to affect him by his mouth. Have to affect somebody by their mouth. So it doesn't make a difference if they're naked or not. All it has to do is make contact inside his mouth, or her mouth, yeah. So, if you're relying on some cosmic being to be able to stop somebody like this, good luck. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen as frequently, especially because we can go through the Totally Naked Man comics, and you can see the horseless horse. A couple times it is used, it does make it there, but he even makes it very clear. It's not a guarantee by any means. In fact, it often doesn't come. So if you're looking at oftentimes it's not going to come, oftentimes he's not going to win. Because he has no physicality over her. He's got size, so he's going to have reach. But we don't have any huge feats showing, he's strong enough to be able to take her. On top of that, he frequently loses to extremely conservative women. How do we know this? Because in a later issue, you see the likes of Anti-Man, Zeta Man, and Totally Naked Man, or Totes as he likes to be called, all really kind of like, we don't want to spar with you. No, we're good. And he's the one who ends up getting stuck with doing the training with her. But then she shows how quickly she can just dispatch him, and he has no defense against it. And if somebody's actually a better fighter than him, which, he's definitely stronger than extremely conservative woman. We've been able to see the feats of her versus him. Strength-wise, he seems to have a little more strength than her. Not a great deal, but when it comes down to it, end of the day, there's data versus next to no data. That's how that runs out. So, that is it for tonight's episode. So, the big reveal, as all Death Battle type of content comes with, is the reveal for the next episode. The next episode is actually going to be my character, Crow. I will be giving a preview most likely on Facebook and Twitter. So for those following me on Facebook and Twitter, you'll be able to see who Crow is, and I'm going to go and give some extra details about him throughout the week. For those that are not familiar with Crow, or don't follow me on social media, you'll have to wait till Friday at 9 p.m. It will be starting at 9 on time. Tonight it was a few technical difficulties. Wanted to go and get some of my animations completed, and I wasn't able to, and getting everything put together, and Adobe crashed on me a couple times. So, issues after issues. But it's going to be Crow versus Anti-Man from Naked Man Comics. Now, for those in the know, if you know, you know. They're very similar characters. I mean very, very similar. Like I said, if you know, you know. If you don't, I'm not going to spoil it either. I'm not going to go and tell anybody about it. The similarities really weird. But this is Vigilante versus Vigilante. We're talking Master Detective versus Master Detective. So we'll see who comes out victorious. But as for the victor tonight, it is Ghost Kiss.